And we're live. Well, I'm so glad that you managed to make it, Barbie. We've had some technical problems with the StreamYard software, but we
Yeah.
managed to sort them. And
Well, I was a
my
bit
name
miffed
is,
actually.
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay.
Chloe, carry on.
I know. I was just saying. It said your software isn't can't take our fabulous technology, and I was like, oh, it's okay for everyone else. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It isn't okay for everyone else. My friend Kat Pulver could not get her microphone to work on here. And then the sound suddenly dropped out when I was interviewing Tony Sands, so that might have been his tech. But anyway, welcome everybody who's live. We've actually got one live person watching. Hello to you. And then I'm sure we'll pick up a lot of viewers later on once it's online. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm very grateful to be able to welcome Barbie Wilde to the interview room. And I'm sure you will know her mainly as the female Cenobite from the second Hellraiser movie, but she is also gifted in a lot of other areas. I found it mime artist and dancing. You've worked with Morecambe and Wise, and you've worked
Yes.
with Michael Winner on Death Wish 3. God, that's impressive. Plus, you've done a
Yeah.
lot of theatre work. You've had a couple of music, you made a couple of records, and you've written a whole bunch of stories, including one that I read this morning called Blue Eyes in Green and Pleasant Land. And I'm doing
Yeah.
all the talking now, so shut up.
It's
But that
okay.
is, you know, you've been to a lot of places, met a lot of people.
I know, and everyone always says, "Oh, what a career you've had," as if I planned it.
Mhm.
Because you know, I came to the UK many years ago to study acting, and
Yeah.
went to a mime class at the dance centre in London, and I fell in love with mime, and then I fell in love with a mime artist who's still a really good friend of mine, and we were a member of this mime company, and then we thought, let's do our own show, and we were doing
Yeah.
this really stupid little show at this place called, oh God, I can't remember. Maximus, funnily enough, a disco in Leicester Square.
Oh,
And this other two people came along and they said, let's get together. And then we put another couple people and we were dancing around London. Then RCA Records um, signed us.
yeah.
Early 80s, supported Gary Newman, Depeche Mode, all these people. And then it all exploded horribly.
Mm,
My nascent pop career went down the toity. And so I thought, oh, what do I do now? So I went back
yeah.
into, I tried being a solo artist and all that stuff. And then
Yeah.
I went back into acting. But at that point, I had bright blue hair.
Mm,
So I cornered the
as you
role
did.
on sort of, as you do in the 80s. And so
Hmm.
I did a lot of punk parts. And that's where then I went Pinky Red. And that's when I did Death Wish 3, which was a very interesting. Um, when I had blue hair, I did Grizzly 2. All my films have numbers after the titles. Take from that what you will. And that was fun because we went to Hungary. We didn't even see a bear, but we just did some performing. But the cast had Charlie Sheen, Laura Dern, a young George Clooney. These three people all get attacked by the bear in the first 15 minutes. So they're what we call in the movie trade red shirts. So they
Mm,
die very rapidly, but other famous people were in this ridiculous movie, and it took like 30 years to finally get out. And it was actually shown at the Cannes Film Festival a couple of years ago. God knows how they squeaked in that. But no, so, and then, I did Death Wish, which was interesting, as you say, with Michael Winner. And I decided to do TV presenting. And I did some film review and kids' TV shows, pop music shows. And then in the middle of all that, I got a call from my agent saying, do you want to go up to see a casting director called Doreen Jones
yeah.
and be in Hellraiser 2? Now, I'd seen the first film and Speaking as a professional meme artiste,
Yeah.
um, I just hated mask work. I'm a bit claustrophobic.
Yes.
Whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh no, they want me to be that chattering thing. Oh, I hate that, you know. And my friend Jeff from Lancashire said, "Oh, go on, Bobby." I can't do the accent. You know, 20 years from now, they'll be writing books about you called Barbie Wilde, Queen of the Bee Movies, you know. So I went to the audition, and astonishingly, I got the part. And luckily, I wasn't the chatterer. I had to, instead of just putting a headpiece, huge mask over my head, I had to spend 4 hours in the makeup chair and half an hour in getting into the, getting laced up into my leather costume. So there you go. And the rest is
Fun,
horror history.
fun times.
Yeah, it
Fun
was.
times.
No, it was. It was actually kind of unpleasant, but you know, I met some wonderful people and we're still friends. After all, what
Yeah.
is it, 35 years or something? Um, 36
Oh,
years now. Yeah.
yes. Yes, it is. Time flies. Time flies.
Yes.
I actually worked with Clive Barker myself at the Cockpit Youth Theatre. He did the play Subtle Bodies, and I was stopped,
Oh,
which was fun. But Clive lent me a book called The Cellars by John Shirley, which is just one of the scary books I've ever read. And so that was my brush there. But
oh,
so
I
it seems that we
remember
were
the.
actually. Mm,
Sorry, I remember the Cockpit Theater well because of the mime festival was there, and it was. Of course, he loved mime and stuff. He was fascinated by it. Still is.
yeah, yeah. I'm afraid I'm always reminded when you mention mime. I'm always reminded of Lord Vetinari in the Terry Pratchett books. He
Oh,
didn't like mime artists, so he used to lock them up in a cell with a sign "Learn the words" on it.
and there's also a wonderful scene in Kramer versus Kramer where Dustin
Mm,
Hoffman is walking miserably through Central Park and he sees a
yeah,
mime artist sort of pretending to be on a tightrope and he just walks over and pushes him. And so he falls over, which of course, you know, we also used to merrily laugh at. But no, there was a
yeah.
brief, interesting time when it was okay to
Mm,
be a mime artist. But I think that's one of the
yes,
reasons I was cast because the
yeah.
received wisdom was that I was also a dancer too, but
Mm,
the mime artists could get that, um, achieve stillness in a way
yes.
that ordinary actors supposedly couldn't. I don't know. Or maybe they're more
Mm,
patient in being inside of costumes, which of course did not work out for me. But I
mm,
think that's the thing about Cenobites is that they're pretty um, quietly still. They don't run
yes.
around screaming at you with a chainsaw and try and chop your head off.
Mm.
They sort of they really think they're giving you a gift, if you know what I
Oh,
mean.
that's a brilliant creation, though. Is
Yeah.
to be. For me, I've got this thing called fibromyalgia. So what really, really fascinates me is they're so ripped up and pierced and mutilated and carved. They
Hmm.
ought to be in extreme pain, but they're acting as if there's absolutely nothing wrong with them.
Well, I'll never forget going up to Tony Randall and saying, "What's my motivation?" And I'm so embarrassed I asked that. Um, but we had had no rehearsals. And no,
Mm,
I met him in the audition and then that was it. Cenobites at that point were still considered kind of unimportant characters, if you can believe that.
yes.
No, certainly not by Clive or anybody, but
Mm,
we were sort of, everything was very much centered on, as it should have been, as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned, is Julia's character, the diva
Mm,
of horror. But I just said, he just said, "You're dead." I thought, oh, okay. So I just acted as dead as I could. But the point is that they do this all for pleasure. And so they're
yes.
actually feeling deep joy at all these
Mm,
painful things. I mean, and if you look at the original book, of course, it's actually much more, I believe the piercings were much more brutal than the
Yes.
the film portrayed. But of course, the Americans were already nervous about this film
Mm.
that they'd bought into, and they cut out a couple of scenes where Frank was spanking Julia, and they would can't have that in an American movie. What? It's just a bit of S&M love. What do you
Mm.
think the Cenobites are? And somebody said, "Oh, we don't like the title, The Hellbound Heart, because it sounds a bit
Mm.
romantic." And some bright spark said, "Well, why don't we just call it Sadomasochists from Hell?" But that obviously didn't happen. But it's an old joke, but a good one. And but it was when I first went to see that film, and everyone went to see it. I was a
Mm.
big Stephen King fan, still am in many ways. And he said he's the future of horror, Clive Barker. So we went to see it. And I must say, I'd never seen anything like it.
Yes.
And I'd been watching horror movies since I was a kid. But these
Yes.
we're talking 50s black and white horror movies,
Mm.
which aren't that scary. Although I still say I was asked to do sort of like a film talk about my favorite horror film, and I ended up doing Psycho. But really, the film that scared me the most was the original black and white version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And I couldn't look at it
Oh,
again.
yes.
I saw one clip of it. I thought, nope, I can't do that. Because when I was a kid and I saw that film, I used to look under my bed for pods, alien pods, every night.
Yeah.
Oh, the sweet, sweet paranoia. So, anyway,
Mm.
I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, I'm just.
No,
Um,
not at all. For me, it was Morlocks, the time machine. They
yes.
scared the hell out of me.
Oh, I'm
I was
sorry. The
terrified
eyeball
of them.
rolling out. The eyeball rolled out of his head when he was
Yes.
going forward or something. That was or backwards. It was just.
Oh,
But that film was amazing.
yes, yes. I really love it now. Did you see the remake with Jeremy Irons?
Jeremy Irons. I thought it had Guy Pearce in it. Or is that another one?
Oh, there's probably more than one remake, but maybe
I
Guy
ne-
Pearce. Jeremy Irons played the head Morlocks. They overused the Morlocks in the sequel so that they just weren't scary, which is, that
oh.
that
Well,
my opinion.
maybe that's the one with Guy Pearce. But I must
Hmm,
admit, because both my partner and I just love um, um the original Time Machine. Um, uh, we thought, oh, let's give it a go. We like Guy Pearce. He's a wonderful actor. L.A. Confidential and stuff, and other films. Guy Pearce, Yancey Eris, looking now.
hmm.
Uh,
2000.
Philida Law is in it. Josh Stamberg, Jeremy Irons. Yes, that's the
Quite a
Jeremy Irons one.
cast.
Yeah,
Yes, it's the same one.
yeah.
It's
And
the
I,
same
I,
one.
we made about our rule is we'll watch it for 20 to 30 minutes, and if it
Yes.
doesn't engage, and it didn't engage, because I just kept
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
I want to watch the original.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. It's very rare I find for remakes to match up to the original at all. I nearly
mm,
always prefer the remake.
well,
The
it's funny
exception
because sorry.
with the exception of Dawn of the Dead, which not Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. That's one rare case where I prefer the remake, but
Right. Well, it's
that's a very
funny
popular
because
opinion.
yeah, I must admit, I went to see the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in the 70s, I think it was, with Donald Sutherland. And
Yes.
a friend of mine who's, one of the top editors of horror magazines said that was the one he'd seen first, and so he loved it the best. And
Yeah.
I actually tried watching it again recently, and I thought, no, it's that when you're 10 and you're sitting on the
Mm,
couch on a Saturday
mm,
afternoon because your brother said, you got to watch this movie with me. And I was absolutely enthralled by it, but scared to deeply because
Oh,
you
yes.
couldn't trust your parents. There were several films like that. Invasion from Mars, where your parents got drilled in the back of the
Davis
neck
from,
and tried
yes.
to drag you underneath, and they remade that too, and that was not very
Mm.
good.
I've
And
not
of
seen that
course,
one.
the remake is, I don't think it's very good. It didn't get good reviews. And of course, they did
Mm.
remake one of my all-time favorite sci-fi films, The Day the Earth Stood Still, with Keanu Reeves, who I adore. But
Mm.
the film was horrible. I didn't like it at all. I mean, sorry, Keanu Reeves is not Michael Rennie. And
Mm.
it's interesting because I was just reading about it, and they said they wanted to originally cast Spencer Tracy as the alien. And I thought,
Mm.
really? Spencer in the 50s. And
Well,
but
respect to Spencer Tracy, but I don't think he could have carried it off.
well, funnily enough, they went for Michael Rennie, who was completely unknown in
Mm.
the United States. And so he was this tall, I mean, he looked like an alien. And I
Yes.
sort of got a big crush on him, actually. And
Oh, me too.
I thought, if I want an alien, I don't want it to look like a blobby jelly thing. I want it to look like Michael Rennie. So, no, that was interesting. But there are a few remakes. I'm just trying to think of a remake. There are
Mm.
some sequels that are better than the
Yes.
original. Say Mad
Oh, I,
Max 2, I think is a
yes.
superior movie to Mad Max. But that's more like probably a budget thing than anything else.
Well, I think
But
Hellraiser 2 is superior to the first Hellraiser. I was much more engaged in the second one, much more on the edge of my seat, and also much more grossed out. So,
well, it's interesting because recently, whenever it came out, I watched the new reboot with the fabulous Jamie Clayton playing the Hell Priest, right?
yes.
And we watched it, and my partner, by the way, does not like horror movies at all.
Mm.
But I said, listen, I have to watch the original again. Do you mind? And he
Yes.
went, no, I remember seeing it when it first came out. He'd never seen it before, right?
Uh-huh.
So I finished the first film, which was only an hour, Hellraiser 1, 1986 or whatever it was. I said, what do you think? 87. And he said, Clive Barker is a genius.
Yes.
And then we watched the second one. And I've always felt that because there were a lot of problems during the second one of certain actors weren't sure they were going to turn up and stuff like that. We got new pages every day
Mm.
of things changing and stuff. So to me, my favorite is always the first one.
Yes.
And but I can understand people love the sort of more going into hell and all
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And my personal favorite moment is Julia thrusting her arm into the back of Frank's chest and pulling out his heart and going, "Nothing personal, babe," just like he killed her with the same line in the first one. I mean, that was beautiful.
Mm.
Well, actually, maybe not beautiful, but no, and it's a great film, and
Mm.
it's been number one best horror sequel, I think, by a lot of
Yeah.
different polls. Um, I don't know. What did you think of the new Hellraiser reboot?
I actually didn't see it. I didn't feel I have such a strong affection for the first three Hellraiser movies. I just really didn't want to. Maybe I will one day, but I just didn't want to have. I didn't want to have the memories replaced by other ones, if you know what I mean.
Oh, well, you could always do what we did is just watch that and then the first Hellraiser to remind you. But a friend of mine said it
Yes.
succinctly. She watched it too, the reboot,
Mm.
and she said the thing about the first Hellraiser, directed by Clive Barker, is it's a film for adults,
Yes.
right? And in the second one, where they actually say for a new generation, Hellraiser for a new generation. And they did a great job. Visually, it was beautiful. I loved the Voight character, it was closer to my age. And
Yeah.
I thought the Cenobites looked fantastic. Jamie was great.
Yes.
Needed more of her on stage, on screen, as far as I was concerned. But it was 2 hours long. The first one was just over an hour and a half, and I thought to myself, why swap out two sexy, attractive adults who are interested in S&M sex with
Yes.
drug-addled teens?
Mm.
Because I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And but the acting was fabulous. It was very interesting. Um, and they did a fine job. And I think as part of the mythology, that's fantastic. And I
Yes.
support them wanting to explore more. But I think a lot of people were going, well, where's Doug Bradley and all that? I mean, he has made the part to his own.
Yes.
And, you know, but no, I think it was great. It was very good. Did what it said on the tin, as the
Mm.
English say. But I prefer the first two.
Yes. So I normally start off by asking a question which I didn't ask this time. Is that were there any local legends or haunted houses when you were growing up?
Um, well, there's one place I'm actually writing about it in the moment, so I can't really speak about it. There is one place I can think of that I felt was haunted, but it wasn't.
Mm.
And but there are any haunted houses where I grew up.
Mm.
Um, no,
Local
but I did.
legends,
I
like
No, I think the one time I experienced something a bit strange,
yeah,
I'd come to England, and as part of this exchange student thing, and we were taken on a tour of Hampton Court, which was kind of groovy,
oh,
and
yeah,
we went through this vast hallway outside of the chapel, and I suddenly felt this bad feeling, cold and bad
yeah,
feeling. I walked out to the English guy, our teacher, who was taking us on the tour. I said, "Oh gosh, I just got a really bad feeling just down that
yeah.
hallway." And he went, "Oh, that's the haunted gallery." And I
All
went,
right.
"Really?" He said, "Yes. Catherine Howard ran screaming down that hallway and banged on the door of the chapel at trying to get Henry VIII from, to stop arresting her and
Yes.
dragging her off to be executed. And they dragged her screaming away, and she couldn't get into the
Mm.
chapel. And
Yeah.
I thought, ooh, that if any place was going to be haunted,
Yes. Oh, yes.
that that would have been. So, and also
Yeah.
I was in a place where somebody said they had seen a ghost, and it was kind of a very old house, and they had done an extraordinary thing where they'd taken down the wooden paneling on the walls, and
Yeah.
they exposed all these beautiful medieval painted panels and things. And this woman was in the bedroom, and she looked up, and there was a man holding a candle looking at her. And she went, well, I just had spoken to her. And she said, and then he just turned and left. And I ran out to the hallway, and he was gone. But who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe she'd had a couple too many red wines. He wasn't threatening or anything. But that's the only
Yeah.
experience I can think of at the moment.
Can you remember the first horror movie you ever saw?
Oh, well, it's one of the three that I've just mentioned. It was either Invasion of the Body Snatchers or Invaders from Mars. These are all the black and
Mm.
white versions. I think the Day the Earth Stood Still, it's more of a sci-fi one to me, but
Yes.
also
Yeah.
there's The Thing from Another World, again,
Mm.
aliens,
Yeah.
and but again the black and white version, not the Carpenter version, which
Yeah.
I actually went to see for the first time in the cinema, and I actually had a nightmare before I went to see the film.
Mm. Mhm.
But I think those are the ones that I remember. I mean, we would just sit and look at the TV because it was exciting back in the olden days. Oh, let's watch a television show. And they had Saturday night in the movies, and they had that's when well, it wasn't shown on TV until the early 70s, which is Psycho, The Birds, but also The
Mm.
Haunting of Hill
Oh,
House,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
which was brilliant, and The Innocents with Deborah Carr, which is sort of the ultimate
Um,
ghost story.
I never liked it much.
Oh,
But
oh, really? Oh,
I'm not really keen on Henry James. I have tried. I have
oh,
tried to
oh,
like
I
Henry James,
have
but
you tried to read him?
oh yes,
Three
oh yes.
pages to
The only
describe
one
a
I like of
room.
his is Washington Square, and
Right.
that's quite a chilling one. You know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of cruelty in that, and
Well,
at the moment
I
when
haven't I tried to read the story upon which it was based, Turn of the Screw, and I just
yeah,
thought, oh my God, this is like wading through treacle. I love the film.
mm,
I love the way it's also. I think it's very um, kind of so adorable that Kate Bush based one of her songs on The Innocents, as she did, as Neil Gaiman said of her, she's the first person who ever wrote a song about a book. I think, Wuthering Heights.
I've got a feeling she isn't. I've got a feeling she
Probably
isn't.
not. No.
Um, I don't know about a book, but the Alan Parsons Project did a concept album on the poems and stories of Edgar Allan Poe. I'm
And they
pretty
also
sure
did
that
War of the
predates Kate Bush.
Worlds. There was
Oh
somebody else
yes,
did War of the Worlds.
um. Now I
That was
know who
Jeff
that
Wayne.
is. That's just Rick
Jeff
Wakeman.
Wayne.
Jeff White.
What?
Oh right,
Jeff
not Rick
Wayne.
Wakeman.
No, Jeff Wayne, I think it
Yes.
was. Yeah. But no, but the thing is, it sounds more romantic instead of Wuthering Heights. But
Mm,
no, it's interesting. I think I try not to, having gone through periods of belief or non-belief or whatever. I think the one
mm,
thing I do actually think could still exist,
yes.
not zombies or boogeymen or whatever. It's ghosts,
Um,
because that can also be a mental thing too. That there are people who haunt you, and this is the sort of the extraordinary human mind that can do that. But who's to say that we stop just because the corporeal
mm,
part of our bodies stop? Um,
yeah.
but it's, I mean, a lot of religions try to explain this and stuff, but I think that's why I've always liked a good ghost story.
Yes. Yes. I just sort of reminded us. I think I might have mentioned this in an interview before, but a very dear friend of mine died a few years ago, and 4 days after his death, I woke up because I heard him call my name twice. Now, it's possible that it was a very vivid dream, but I've had people say, no, he came back to speak to you, and I think he might have come back because, because of
I had
various reasons.
exactly the same thing happen to me after my dad
Oh,
died.
right.
Exactly. I
Yes.
actually got up and looked, which is a bit silly, I suppose, but I
Yeah.
had exactly the same phenomena happen to me. That's why I did
Yeah.
the big reaction when you said that. But no, it's just these are things that not even scientists would probably want to even try to
Mm,
explain, you know. But this is why, I mean, that's what I'm writing. It's a ghost story. I
yes.
don't think I've written any ghost stories actually, because this is kind of a real life ghost story. But and it's been very difficult. I've had a lot of block on it for various reasons. But it's if I read, say I from when I get an idea for something, somebody said, "Oh, you can." They gave from a friend of mine called Dean Drinkle, who's now with the publisher Domain Publishing. He was doing a lot of anthologies, and he would give, you know, choose something, like
Mm,
demons or whatever, and then say, "Okay, I'm going to give you A," and then you'd have to go out and find something, the topic. that you could write about beginning with
Yeah.
A. And I found that actually very helpful. But I found, a friend of mine would have these feelings of pressure on their chest when they were sleeping. And when they woke up, they would see something coming at them and they couldn't speak or they couldn't talk. And
Mm.
it's called sleep paralysis, it's called.
Oh, yes.
And there's a phenomena called, there's a demon called the Alpdruck. And the Alpdruck, there's actually a very famous painting by Fusili, I think his name is.
Oh,
And it's
yes. The
called,
woman with the demon gargoyle squatting on her chest.
yes. And there's a horse
Yes.
behind her with no eye. Oh, God, yeah.
Mm.
And the Alpdruck sits on your chest and gives you sleep
Mm.
paralysis. I mean, trust trust a sensible country like the Germans to come up with this one. Maybe there's a way to
Yeah.
explain this. So that sort of started an idea of that, because this is a real phenomena that happens, and so we invent a demon to explain it. And so there probably may be in the next 100 years, if we make that a phenomena that science can explain why we feel so
Mm.
strongly that there may be ghosts. It could be wishful thinking. It could be a lot of other things. But I don't know. It's an interesting topic. Ghosts.
Certainly is.
Sorry.
Yes, I just sort of thinking it does. I do find that mentioning it does set a lot of people to talking. I remember with Jeffrey Thomas, I asked him about it, and he said, "Oh yes, the house that he grew up in, or one of the houses that he grew up in, was haunted, and he and his
Yeah.
brother both experienced a lot of phenomenon there. Nothing
Yeah.
scary, nothing scary, but
Yeah.
to try and get myself back on track, because of course my head goes off on tangents quite a lot.
Yeah.
I want to go
Welcome to my
back
world.
a little. Yeah, yeah. I was always getting told off in class for not paying attention, staring out the window, fidgeting, all that, and it hasn't changed much. But I was fascinated to hear that you were on the Morecambe and Wise show, because when I was a child, everybody watched that show.
Yes.
Was it fun? Did
So
you have
did
a good time?
I. Oh, it was a blast. It was wonderful. But the
Mm,
funny thing is, filming coincided with my parents coming to visit me. And
yeah,
my mother I mean, she was from Yugoslavia, but she left when she was 9. And so my dad had been to London a lot, but he decided that it would be fun for them
yeah.
to go on a fishing holiday in Devon. My mother was
Uh-huh.
beside herself with joy. Not. But no, she loved it. And so he hired a car and I drove them
Mm,
down to Devon.
yeah,
And because I still had, had a driving license and all that kind of stuff. But then I
mhm,
stayed there with them for a day and watched him fly fishing in the stream and stuff. And then also he caught something in the lake, which was this massive fish. And then I had to drive back. Now, that
yeah.
time I had bright blue hair. I was walking around in this black jumpsuit that was actually I got from Flip on Kings Road. It was American flyers outfit, but it was quite tight. And so I was walking around in that in this little Devon hotel. And when, my parents and I would be sitting in the bar and everybody was chatting to each other. No one came over to talk to us. And my father tried to be sort of, hey, what you doing? And he said, it's just people sliding away, right? And then I said, well, listen, I've got to go to whatever the nearest town was. Drove to the town, took the train back up to London, filmed my episode where I was a robotic mannequin, and
Yeah.
then, came back the next day, or I can't even remember what the time thing was. Anyway, so my parents are spending their lonely moments, and they go in oh no, it was the next morning, that's right. And my father
Yes.
goes to ask for something at the desk, and he goes, oh, where's your daughter with the blue hair? And he said, oh, she had to go up to London to film Morecambe and Wise. She's on their show.
Hmm.
Oh my God. The word went around like wildfire,
Yeah.
and they were being bought free drinks in the bar that
Oh,
evening.
fabulous.
He said, "You wouldn't believe the reaction I got when I mentioned this
Mm,
to the guy." And they sort of, you know, fated us. They said, "Oh, your daughter's on Morecambe and West," because they just saw me as this blue-haired weirdo, obviously.
yeah.
But no, it was wonderful. But working with them was, they were absolutely adorable, really
Mm,
funny, kept everyone totally entertained, absolutely professional,
yeah.
and it was enormous fun. And I think I actually got contacted by one of the people who are still running. Oh no, that was the Sooty show.
Oh, you've
I
done
also
that one as well.
I taught Sooty and Sweep how to do robotic mime.
Oh,
But no, it's funny because I was doing cabaret at Coconut Grove, doing again
yeah.
robotic mime. And this guy said, "Hold on, you were on the Sooty show yesterday." But no, that was, I claimed fame tearing people's souls apart and teaching a glove puppet how to do robotic mime.
I was just
It,
thinking, I'm
honestly,
actually from Devon. That's where I grew
oh,
up. I was also a blue-haired weirdo, and sometimes I was a red-haired weirdo, a green-haired weirdo, and fled screaming for London the moment I hit 18.
oh, I don't blame you. I mean, I must admit, having lived in sort of podunk
Yeah.
little towns, as we call them,
Mm,
London was just wow. It was just
yes.
wonderful. And, I got there in 77. And that was just,
Yeah.
but I was still pre-Raphaelite and sort of, oh, I must wear my sort of fabulous green outfits and,
Mm,
henna my hair like Lizzie Siddle and all this stuff. And within a year, I dyed my hair purple and, you know, joined these dance groups and
to get
stuff
mine
like
to go
that.
purple. I tried
Sorry?
several times. I could never get my hair to go purple. The purple dye would always come out brown or red, but never purple.
Oh, right. Well, the thing is I mean, I don't think I did that for the purple because I really didn't want to bleach my
Mm,
hair, but I
yeah.
had to bleach it to go blue because it was
Mm,
aquamarine blue. And
yeah.
that was pretty devastating because, our hair was so big because all the
Yes.
cans of hairspray and stuff. And, you had a root perm to keep it sticking up,
Yeah.
bleached. And eventually, a lot of my hair in the back of my head broke off, which is a sign,
Mm,
you shouldn't
yeah.
do that. But so I read this, some guy told me that they actually sprayed blue metallic car paint on their
Oh, yeah.
hair.
Yeah, I've known people do that. Yeah.
And they look great, and then their hair follicles fell out.
Hmm.
So it's a
Yes.
cautionary tale.
It was sugar and water that we used to use mainly. And in the summer,
That's
it would
it.
attract wasps and flies. So,
Well, that's why I avoided that. I just used
yeah.
Elnet, I think it was called,
Mm,
or whatever it
yes,
was.
pod the ozone layer.
Couple of cans of that, and you're ready to go. Somebody said it looks like you've got boxes on your head. Blue and red and white
Mm,
boxes. It's just madness. But it was great. It was enormous fun. I'll always have enormous fondness for the 80s because we did all
yeah.
this touring, like I said, supporting Adam and the Ants and all these people, and then doing the TV presenting and meeting Cliff Richard, Iggy Pop, Johnny Rotten, Johnny Lydon,
Hmm.
and then um, doing Grizzly 2, and then it was Death Wish 3, and then it was Hellraiser. And
Yeah.
sort of everything else was kind of, my career's been downhill all the way. No, not since then, but no, it has. But then, you grow up, acting leaves
Mm,
you behind. I became a casting director for the MTV's The Real World London, which was interesting. And then I thought, what do I do next? And I always loved writing, which is why I got into writing and stuff. And I did. I was working on a serial killer novel for years, and it's finally out there. It's still on Amazon till the end of June, and then I've got a different publisher, Domain, again. But
Yeah.
then this friend Paul Kane, who interviewed me for Hellraiser Films and Their Legacy, asked me to do an
Now that's a
anthology.
name I've heard of. I'm just trying to think where.
Oh, he's an amazing author, and I can't typical. I'm trying to think. He did a wonderful hellish mashup of the Cenobites meeting Sherlock Holmes. That was incredible.
Yeah.
But
I'll have to
he's written
search
a
that
lot.
one out.
Yeah. Well, he and his wife Marie O'Regan, excuse me, they were doing an anthology
Yeah.
of called Hellbound Hearts, and it was based on the Hellbound Heart. And it was very liberating because it had not to be based on the film. You had to be careful because of Clive sold the rights to of the script
Yeah.
for the film rights. Sorry. So that's when I wrote a story called Sister Celise, which was about a
Yeah.
female Cenobite, not particularly my character. But he said, do you want to write something? I said, oh, but Paul, I only write crime. And I said,
Mhm.
I can't believe I said that. I said, he said, oh, go on. I'd love to have a female perspective of a female Cenobite thing. And I wrote it in a week, and I've never done that since. I
Yeah.
just was asleep. I was just about to fall asleep, and the idea popped into my head.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of my horror story writing career. Was because it's sort of like releasing a single before the album, if you like,
Yeah.
because I got invited to do, because of that story, and I got some wonderful reviews for it. I got invited to do more um, anthologies, which was great. And it's interesting because two of them were called phobophobia and phobophobias, and that's you sort of get to explore your own fears.
Yeah.
If you pick up, hey, what's your worst phobophobia and all this kind of stuff. So, sorry, what's your worst phobia? But so that's what I'm doing now, and I've just released um, a selection of 4 stories of Sister Celise, and it's her making of her, and then her deciding she's sick of playing second banana to you know who, and so
Yep.
she gets the toy maker to do her own box, and then centuries later she's in hell and she goes, oh, I'm so sick of this, let's do a female Cenobite rebellion,
Hmm.
and all hell breaks loose. And then the last one is excuse me, it's a little bit of an epilogue, really, story of what happens after the rebellion, which doesn't go as she planned. And so, but it's just, yeah, they never do. But it's been a great journey with her, and I keep hoping that, um, one day somebody actually got to the list of the top 10, number one, top 10 Hellraiser stories never made into a movie. So
Right.
I'd like to have it made into a movie one
Have
day.
you ever thought to write movie scripts?
I have. I've started. I started writing one for my serial killer novel, The Venus Complex, and then I
Yes.
got a bit distracted because a friend of mine who's a filmmaker and this editor I was talking about, Chris Alexander, just loved Blue Eyes, and
Mm.
so we worked on the script, and it's ready to go. But
Wonderful.
he's yeah, but he's Canadian, and I said, can't you go to the Canadian Film Board and get funding, because it would be a bit more expensive than he normally makes low budget films, but
Mm.
they people are turning out some amazing things now, and I mean he wants to do it, but I think he's had these other projects, and but it is going to cost a bit because of the special effects and stuff.
Right.
So we'll see, because it's a bit different than the original story now.
Yes.
But it's if it ever gets made, it's going to be wonderful. It's so
Yeah.
uh, synchronicitous, serendipitous that you read that particular story this morning.
Well,
Because
yes. Well, I looked up your work on Amazon, and I found that I'd already purchased Green and Pleasant Land. So I thought, wow, so I read it. So that was a lovely coincidence there, because of course my reading list is yay long. But
well,
so that
it's
would
funny
be a
because I
thing to
don't know
see.
how. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I finished.
Oh no, no, it's interesting because the last convention I was at, I was telling people I'd written some books and stuff, and for some reason they don't know. And but when I mentioned that Doug Bradley had done the audiobook for The
Yes,
Venus Complex, my serial killer novel, that's a wow, got to do that, and I think because this is in America and they've got very long distances to drive every day to work,
yes.
and that's why audiobooks are really big in America. And I understand you do audio things
Well, yes,
as
I don't do it professionally. I've got a YouTube channel and I've done quite a bit for LibriVox. And I started doing it basically to say thank you to LibriVox for all of their audiobooks that I'd listened
yeah,
to and still do sometimes.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
got a
I don't
very fast
actually
reading speed.
I actually don't. It's funny because somebody said, "Well, why can't you?" Because I don't actually read as much as I used to anymore. I don't,
Yes,
and my eyes aren't that great as they used to be. But but listening to Doug interpret my work, especially the book is in the first person,
yes,
and I sort of tweaked the Kindle text so to explain his English accent because I didn't want him to lose that glorious English accent. And I mean,
yeah,
his, as one reviewer said, his smooth and venomous tones. I mean, he does have the most wonderful accent. I mean,
yes,
voice. And he's sort of made to do audiobooks, which he has done. But it was so wonderful, and I really should get into it more, because maybe that would be the way so I could actually get through reading books.
yes,
It's difficult. I think the pandemic kind of, how you get sort of lack of concentration and things.
yes,
Um, it's no excuse having COVID brain 2 years after the worst of it, but or three. But it is sometimes difficult to concentrate for me
yes,
on reading people. I actually find it much more relaxing to read an actual book
yeah.
rather than a Kindle or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, for me personally, I've got a very fast reading speed, which I get more enjoyment out of a book listening to it than I do actually reading it, which was a
Oh,
revelation when I found that out.
oh, that's very interesting. I'm going to look into this because I also have a very fast reading speed, and maybe that's the
Mm.
problem. But also,
Well,
if
it slows it
of,
down. I get one word at a time when I listen, whereas when I'm reading, I get sentences. If the text is really simple, paragraphs, boom, 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 which means I miss
yeah,
out on nuance. I get to see the
yeah,
flowers, but
yeah.
I don't get to smell the roses, if you see what I mean.
Oh, that's a nice analogy. Oh gosh. Well, that's um I must look into that and I will. Thank you for inspiring me.
Oh, I hope so. Well, I'm winding down now because we've been talking for almost an hour. I just
Oh gosh.
wondered, are there any modern writers or movies that you'd like to recommend to the audience?
Oh, modern writers or oh gosh, I wish I'd thought about this earlier. Um, well, I'm a huge fan of the Soska twins. They did
Yeah.
American Mary. They did a
Hmm.
wonderful reimagining of Rabid, and I look
Yes.
forward to seeing their Festival of the Living Dead, which is their
Hmm.
homage to George Romero. There's also a wonderful film that Doug Bradley is in called Thorns, by Douglas
Thorns.
Schultz. Yeah, I saw that. It's got a
Ah,
theatrical release at the moment. I think it's going to be going on to, the different platforms. Yeah, Doug plays an evil archbishop, of course.
mhm.
And we saw that at Fright Fest, and it's done really well. So keep an eye out for it. I haven't actually seen, I mean, if
Yes.
you're talking, sorry?
I've just managed to find the trailer on YouTube, the official
Right.
trailer, so I'll have a look at that
It's
later.
it's good. It's not Hellraiser in space or anything like that, but I think if
Mm,
if anybody was going to direct the next Hellraiser, Douglas would be a good choice because he's
yeah.
very stylish, and excuse me, it was an interesting idea too. Um, but authors, horror authors, I know tons of them. Why can't I? Well, Paul Kane's he's got new stuff out. Um, oh God, it's terrible, isn't it, when your brain just goes clunk? But well, just keep an eye on my Facebook page because
Yeah.
my friends. That's terrible. I always retweet things or you know, um, put things up on Facebook, but I must go back and um, take it because I often just have it limited to my friends, and I have a
Yeah.
Facebook page that's you know Barbie Wilde author actress, but I sort of neglect that horribly. But I haven't actually seen any horror films recently. I've
Ah,
just seen Argyle. I'm going through a
okay.
bit of Henry Cavill thing, and that was very amusing. That was directed by Matthew Vaughn, who did the Kingsman films. And before
Oh,
that,
right.
oh, it's very amusing. As always, it's too long. But Sam Rockwell, Henry Cavill, John Cena is hilarious.
Mhm.
But there was another film. Oh, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. That was good.
Yeah.
But God, this is terrible. Shame on you,
Oh, oh,
Barbie.
that's based on on a true story,
It
isn't it?
it is. Ian Fleming actually appears as a character in the film,
Right.
and that's by Guy Ritchie actually. And that was again a bit too long, but it was really good. Not enough Henry, and his beard
Yeah.
was too heavy, but that's okay.
Mm,
But it was great. It was a Guy Ritchie film, but it was based on a true story that,
mhm,
it's always the sort of like Where Eagles Dare, if that anyone remembers that one. It's like impossible missions and all this
mm.
stuff in World War II. But it was by I believe, the
Right.
same group of people who came up with Operation Mincemeat, which I believe is a recent film with Colin Firth.
So
Do
it's
you know
all
that?
based on no, I don't. I'm just sort of noticing, looking, Googling it here very quickly.
Yeah,
Based on a book, Churchill's Secret Warriors, the explosive story of the Special Forces desperados of World War II, which sounds
that's it.
right up my alley. I'm really into World War II at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's great. We
Mm.
enjoyed it very much. It's got a lot of good action in it. There's a lovely Mexican actress whose name escapes me. She's great. Got a wonderful ensemble cast. And that's the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. The Operation Mincemeat was that one where they found a dead body of a tramp in London, cleaned him up, put maps that were completely wrong into his pockets, and then dropped him into the Mediterranean for the Germans to find.
Oh,
It's yeah, it's a
oh,
bit
that
macabre,
is genius. That is
yeah.
genius.
And
A
the Germans found the
successful
body,
British deception operation
yeah,
to disguise the 1943 Allied invasion of Sicily. That's on
yeah,
my audiobook list.
yes, yeah. That's it. That's it. I think they
Mm.
made a movie of that with Alec Guinness back in the day. Might have been Alec Guinness, but they also have just made recently, last couple of years, one with Colin Firth. But the thing about Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is that it's also got that wonderful, um, you know, British sense of humor that I love so much. Um, that they're all sort of being very ironic with each other. I suppose you should do that. You realize you're going to go to jail for that, all that kind of stuff. But that's really great. I wish I could think of. Oh, I know. I think I told you is that my partner doesn't like watching horror movies. So,
Yeah.
and I don't really like watching horror movies on my own. I don't know, but maybe you probably. I don't know if you like
No
watching
choice.
them.
It's me and the cat,
I
basically.
know exactly. Your cat probably doesn't like it either. But I started watching one film called Ring, which was the American remake of the Japanese film. And he
Yeah.
said, I'm out of here. I'm not watching it. I started watching it and I stopped it. I went, you've got to come and watch this film. It is
Mm.
extraordinary. And it was. It really was worth watching. And I watched it in the middle of the day too, because I thought I'm not going to watch this tonight. But I'm sure I must have watched some horror movies recently, but um, I can't think of a one, unfortunately. Like when I'm on the plane going to a convention,
Yeah.
it's a comedy, you know? And if
Mm.
I'm writing horror, I want to see a film with Pierce Brosnan and a palm tree and margaritas, you know? The last thing I want to do is watch a horror movie. So that's the thing. I've chattered away. I've been Nick Fitz and chattering away here on your
That's the whole
podcast.
intention. That's the whole intention. I go for my sort of intention really is to get you talking, let you carry on, and prompt you when it starts to
Yeah.
fall.
Yeah.
So you've been wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I'm so
Well,
glad we persisted through the tech problems.
I don't know what happened. God. Oh dear. But these things will come to tries. And I have to say, I do have Star Trek genes. So I found this very,
Mm.
very frustrating. And I hope
Yeah.
that you didn't hear any of me sort of cursing and effing and blinding while I was trying to get it all sorted out.
Oh,
But we
I
did in
didn't,
the
but I
end.
assure you I'm worse. I assure you I'm worse. But anyway, I've really enjoyed myself. I hope you have too. So I'm
I
just
have
going to wind up
absolutely done.
now. To
Okay.
everybody who is watching this, whether you watched it live or whether you're watching it dead, uh, would you please post about it, tell everybody how wonderful we are, um, and thank you everybody who's listening to this. Thank you very much, Barbie, for coming along, and I'm going to say goodbye, everybody, and
Well, it's been absolutely delightful. Thank you for letting me trudge down memory lane, and do let me know when it's up, and I will promote as much as I can.
okay, thank you
Okay.
so much. Goodbye,
Okay. You
everybody.
take care. Take care. Bye.
Bye.